Welcome to Testimony Mountain. I am so glad you're here and glad to have Nikki Pugh with us. And she's been on before. She's my health coach and book coach and so much more. And excited to have you on, Nikki. And if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be on. I think this is the third time, maybe the fourth time I've been on, but it's such a blessing each time to be on because I feel like each time I'm on, it's in a certain point in my journey as a survivor where, I'm able to share things from my journey that hopefully will help others. And, for those of you, I'm not going to go into my story too much because I actually did that in previous interviews. So I just encourage you to go on and, watch those other interviews if you want to get more info. But, in general, I've been on a healing journey with the True family, with the Lord, with Adena, with transformations. And as a believer, for those of you who don't know, I'm a fairly new believer. I had my born again experience in 2018 and had a rocky road for a little while, but then kind of stepped into being in a transformations group. And shortly after that, memories starting to come, distortions at first, blocking my relating with the True family and just hearing God. And Adena, you did such a wonderful workshop recently about hearing God. I encourage people to check that out. There was just such a desire in my soul, a yearning in my soul and in my spirit to just like connect with God. And I'm like, why is this so difficult? And then, I took a huge leap of faith. It was very brave for me to step into the transformations journey that first time. And then slowly but surely, memories coming up about my journey as a survivor. And now I'm actually going through my third transformations journey, doing some facilitating and creating some what I hope to be some health coaching, like a side health coaching curriculum for people who are in transformations. It's been an interesting journey on how we're going to talk a lot about your personal story, your true scroll that you get to walk out with the Lord, which is super exciting. And my true scroll and kind of like coming into awareness with my true like profession or whatever you want to call it. It kind of looks like this. It's like, where am I going, Lord? But it's like the more that I step into trusting and faith, faith can be kind of a nebulous term, but it's just kind of like trusting in the True family, and memory recall. Every time that happens, we come into wholeness a little bit, step by step, I can step deeper and deeper into just like that experience of, thank you, family, you've got me. And I'm so, so grateful for that. I can kind of see how puzzle pieces of my personal story and also what I'm supposed to be doing for the planet right now, is coming into fruition. And so in 2022, I started this journey, this odyssey, part of my story of moving out of my apartment because they raised the rent, and I moved into an RV. And so I was in an RV for 2 years. And during that 2 years, I started kind of like a YouTube channel called The Gentle Healthy Traveler. And I put out like RV DIY videos, fun little kind of like my traveling partner is a bunny, Miss D. And so I put out like funny little videos about her. And also, from the very beginning, I made it clear that, I'm on a faith-based journey. Sometimes I talk about that and like kind of inspirations, scriptures or whatever. And so, and then also like healthy travel videos and kind of like health related videos as well, because I'm trained as a health researcher, writer, health coach. I've written over 4,500 blogs about that topic, mostly with somebody else's name on it because I write as a ghostwriter. And so that season of my life came to an end at the end of last year. I'm now in a beautiful community with other faith-filled individuals. And I had to sell the RV, and to kind of I chose to sell the RV and to end that season in order to kind of make this new experience happen. And we needed a break from the road. We were both, Misty and I were like really exhausted, or like we're both kind of like glad that we get to rest. But it was kind of like, Lord, all this content is focused on life on the road, and I'm no longer on the road. Well, it's just interesting how the Lord has encouraged me to keep the gentle, healthy traveler going. So I'm now kind of in a new season of it. And it's interesting. Now I have friends that I've met along the way that I'm kind of like, I'm living my vicariously traveling life through them. And so I'm kind of consulting them. They've gotten van conversions or RVs and stuff like that. So I do consulting now, other people who want to live a healthy lifestyle on the road, and everything that I do is definitely with the Lord, faith-based Christian. So like if that resonates with you, I do one-on-one health coaching in a faith-filled way. I do work with survivors in a health coaching capacity, and, but not only survivors, just, kind of anyone who is walking the Christian walk or interested about it. Maybe you're coming from a new age perspective and maybe you're feeling, hey, I just want to check out what this person named True Lord Jesus Christ is all about, I'm really excited because I'm revamping my website. I'm still doing videos that are a little bit more health related on the YouTube channel, but the Lord still is encouraging me to have as kind of my three main pillars for that YouTube channel and for what I'm doing: health, inspiration, and fun. And I think it talks to just the beauty of our story gets to be that as we step into some scary stuff with trauma and with scary health diagnoses or whatever, the Lord is massaging our heart, massaging our capacities within to hold more joy inside of our beingness. And that is so profound, because as we get to step into what Wilder calls the joy capacity, and, in transformations, we talk about that a lot, amongst a lot of other things. It helps us to hold these scary things in a way that allows us to process them in just the right way with the Lord, and then return to joy. Because the whole like journey is about stepping more into life. Like, I want to be present with life. And that is a journey that we get to walk hand in hand, step in step with the true family, and with true Lord Jesus Christ, because they are life. They are life. So when you step into life, and whether you're a traveler or not, we're all walking the journey. So, I do a weekly blog. That's my own writing and sometimes video. And also I'll be very soon launching, probably by the end of this month, beginning March, a twice a month paid, very low cost membership that you can connect with more material, mainly on the health journey. Just kind of like some basic health stuff. There's so much information out there. We're so confused about the basic health stuff, how to walk out a healthy lifestyle but also a faith-filled lifestyle and a joy-filled lifestyle. It just gets to be easy and fun. It doesn't have to be complicated, And I believe right now there's such an opportunity, like on the planet, in this country, to really step into to a healthy lifestyle. There's an awakening happening around our physical health, and so I want to make it easy and fun for people, and just kind of put out some basic. And the two, I'll just say this last thing, that the very low cost membership, which will consist of 2 extra newsletters a month. And it's not just information, it's also opportunities to, go on your own journey, some like writing prompts, journaling prompts, some prompts of, stepping into certain activities that you can do that will help your health and make the journey fun. That's my goal.
Oh, good, Nikki. I love all that you do, and I'm looking forward to seeing that expand and more people to be able to have access to it. Because there's so much information out there, it can be just information overload. And once you sign up to all of these other things, it can be like, what do I do? For me to have something that's faith-based, and especially if you're a survivor, targeted towards, or at least sensitive to survivors, is so very, very helpful. So I absolutely love that. Well, I'm just wondering, for those who may not understand what the hero's journey is, if you could kind of describe a little bit of what that looks like and how that fits into our modern storytelling ethos.
A hero's journey term is very prevalent in kind of like the academic world, the kind of literary arts world, very, very prevalent in like the script writing world, advertising, movies, and actually secular like psychology and stuff. Pretty much going forward from when Joseph Campbell was around. He really kind of made his mark as an academic, a mythologist, a scholar in the 40s. And kind of like since then, since that period, and definitely since the 70s and the 80s, when George Lucas took it and created Star Wars. And we'll get into that, the system connections with that, and a man named Michael Aquino. These kind of theories kind of converged into creating this grand mythos, which was the Star Wars trilogies, which my generation was so very influenced by. Not just those of us who had, were subject to mind control programming, but just in general. How the system has inserted themselves kind of since the 1940s on into media is profound and wide and deep, and it influences our psyche. So let me go all the way back to Carl Jung, this individual called Carl Jung. So he created a kind of way of looking at, this was in the beginning part of the 20th century, a very interesting and intriguing way in the secular community, in a way of looking at like the interior terrain of an individual. And there's a term that is kind of thrown around called Jungian psychoanalysis. And what is unique and kind of notable about Jung is that he put out into kind of the psychoanalysis world the concept of archetypes, that term, and the collective unconsciousness, the collective consciousness, how we have these archetypical figures within, connected to myth, and how an individual can process through them. And there's like kind of a micro and a macro way of looking at his work. So how this connects to the hero's journey is that Joseph Campbell came around. He was born in 1920, but he kind of had his heyday in like the 30s to 40s, around the Great Depression, and also in the 40s, the 50s. And he kind of took the Jungian concept of archetypes, and kind of a loose framework that Jung had created about this journey that we each go on in life. And he just kind of like solidified it, marketed it, like that was his bag. And that was called the hero's journey. Doing a little dive into Joseph Campbell's life. So he's known not so much as a therapist and a an analyst, but as like a mythologist and, you know, like kind of an academic researcher, a historian. His main mentor in his academic studies was a guy named Loomis. His focus for his research was Arthurian mythology. And he actually was Loomis was one of the individuals that created the Arthurian Society. That was in the 40s. And that was his main academic mentor, along with others. And so he kind of had this macro lens. You know, he was a world traveler, an adventurer of the mind and of, you know, the world stuff. He dove into a lot of, you know, world cultures. He had some interesting interactions with a guy named Judah Krishnamurti in his early 20s, where apparently he met Krishnamurti on a cruise that his whole family was on, and they had some really interesting conversations. You know, what you hear in the kind of the mainstream about these interactions between people, I always kind of understand that they're kind of hinting at it because they have to, but there's most of the time, you know, I don't want to say something that's not true, but most of the time there's like kind of a deeper thing going on there. So I'm just letting you know about some of the influences of Joseph Campbell, who was the main creator of the term the hero's journey. And Krishnamurti was an influence on Joseph Campbell. And Krishnamurti, interesting enough. Now, Krishnamurti, he founded the Krishnamurti School in Ojai, California, which I believe is still going on today. And he was what was called the Messiah elect of the Theosophical Society. Now, the Theosophical Society was created all around that time, a little bit earlier, actually, the very early 20th century, by Helena Blavatsky and others. The Theosophical Society, you could say, is kind of like a loose, hermetic, occultist society that had a great influence on a lot of thinkers at the time, a lot of people that we actually now might see, I have to say, in New Thought Christianity, as well as secular kind of human potential. Blavatsky was very interesting because she too kind of brought in like this kind of world culture ideology into kind of creating this kind of mesh of new thought. One of her co-founders of the Theosophical Society, she coined the term New Age, but Blavatsky coined the term Age of Aquarius. And you see that in popular culture and actually even in some Christian rhetoric. So these are terms and concepts that are very mainstream now, but it's good to know the roots of things. What's important to know is that the Theosophical Society in general is what you can kind of loosely term was like kind of what's called a hermetic occultist organization that was based on Hermetic Kabbalah. The founders of the Theosophical Society were also loosely the same ones that created the Order of the Golden Dawn. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of do your own research on that. So there's all these little connections. They, and I'll just say this, not to get too out there, but all of these primary comings together and organizations were the foundations of modern globalism. How that circles back around to Joseph Campbell and Krishnamurti is just keeping in mind that Krishnamurti was taken under the wing of the primary founders, like probably this, I'd say like maybe this second generation of Theosophical Society individuals, especially a gal named Annie Besant Wood, or Annie Besant, who became like his adopted mom, and a man by the last name of Leadbeater in India, that kind of took him under their wing and proclaimed him as the Messiah elect of the Theosophical Society. And and what that meant was that he was to be the vehicle of the expected world as a world teacher. So basically, he kind of went under the wing of certain handlers in the Theosophical Society and was trained from a very young age to kind of live up to his potential as a world leader in this kind of globalist world religion. And he actually did. I mean, Krishnamurti influenced Joseph Campbell. He influenced a man named Alan Watts, and many, many thinkers of the time that kind of that lineage can go on today. So he actually was a great influence, and trained, and even I would say mind controlled by members of the Theosophical Society. It's actually very sad that he was taken under their wing at age 8. And, you know, this is an individual that has influenced thousands, directly taught thousands of children through his schools, and you know, with his teachings and stuff, you know, it influenced individuals that then come out to be movers and shakers to influence others. Now, how is that related to you and your life? Well, if you understand that Krishnamurti was an influence, and others, we'll get to that, from that kind of same group, was an influence on Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey then became a major influence in Hollywood. Just so interesting. And there's even some indirect, like, I don't have proof to this, but there's some indirect connections between Hollywood and Joseph Campbell going all the way back to his time at Dartmouth, when Joseph Campbell in his early years was like doing like initial research, putting the dots together, you know, with Jungian archetypes and myth and all this stuff. I'm not sure if this was before or after his encounter, or maybe encounters with Krishnamurti. I kind of have a feeling that they were connected before, but I don't have any proof to that. He was a member of a fraternity at Dartmouth in particular called Delta 2 Delta. And you're seeing right now, like their kind of symbology of, you know, you see the all-seeing eye up there, stars, and also some interesting star connection. But what I thought was really intriguing was, you know, I was like, okay, he's part of this. What's the connection there, Lord? Just to be clear, I've gone down many rabbit holes without the Lord in my past, and now I only go down rabbit holes as the Lord leads. So there's a lot of like things that I'm just like, because I have had so many experiences of going down rabbit holes that have turned out like bad, and I've had like sleepless nights and demonic attacks and stuff. It's like, no, we're not doing that. So here, my process is, okay, Lord, what do you want to show me about this fraternity that Joseph Campbell was in his 20s at Dartmouth? And it's like, okay, we're going to look at who else went through, was a part of Delta to Delta. By the way, Delta to Delta is like kind of a national, international sorority. It's not just at Dartmouth. And if you go in the lineage, of like different disciplines, you would probably think, okay, Joseph Campbell is like this academic guy. You would think that like he would want to be connected to a fraternity that also had like academic movers and shakers. But I'm telling you, when you look at like the disciplines of people that went through this fraternity, there's like a handful of academics, but you go into like, okay, Hollywood people, it's like the list is just, I mean, like actors, actresses, screenwriters, going all the way back to like, again, the beginning of the 20th century. It's like, okay, so Lord, why was Joseph Campbell just happened to be part of this fraternity that had this huge list connected to Hollywood and connected to like, yeah, to like media, not the literary canon, but to Hollywood, actors, actresses, you could even say like the golden years of Hollywood. So there's a lot of Hollywood people that went through this fraternity. And it just so happens that Joseph Campbell went through this fraternity again. Again, I'm not making any connections. I'm just kind of saying, do your own research. I thought that was very interesting. And why that's interesting is because fast forward to the 1970s, there's a guy named George Lucas, which probably everybody's heard of. He created Star Wars. Any screenwriter talking about, how they were trained. This is nothing out of the ordinary. They will tell you that the Star Wars, especially those first three in the trilogy, the Star Wars trilogy set of movies, is basically a verbatim hero's journey. That we're just going to take the hero's journey and make it like a verbatim template for basically every single Hollywood movie. It's like if you take yourself from childhood to now, how many hours have you spent watching not just movies at the theater, but like TV? And even nowadays, social media, like people that make little shorts, they also, it's based on the hero's journey. And it's really like really comes from like, I think a little bit before, but really from the 1970s and George Lucas, I remember waiting in line to see the very first Star Wars movie. It came out in 1978. So I was like, or 79, something that I was about 8 or 9. And I just remember that we had this huge movie theater where I lived that was like the first one that had like the surround sound, and it was just huge. It's like huge amphitheater now, we just put on a VR headset, right? But and there was a line around the block to wait to watch this movie. And for weeks before, it was like we were so excited. And there's been like, famous screenwriters, and it's in academia now when you go through like people getting MFAs in any kind of arts. And I'll talk about that in a minute myself, because I actually have an MFA in creative writing. So I've been through those academic disciplines. They're going to tell you, the hero's journey.
And so what has this hero's journey been like for you, both pre-Christ and now as a Christian?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So how that kind of backstory about what it is in general, how that pertains to my journey is actually really profound. I feel like maybe over the last 6 to 9 months, maybe even over the last year, he's having me take a look, or the True Family's having me take a look at my conscious experience. So I have a 35-year journey, 30-year journey in a lot of a diversity of experiences in different New Age organizations, and just understanding that New Age is a really broad term. I don't actually even like that term because it's kind of like a catch-all. And inside the New Age community, which really is just kind of this catch-all, there's individuals that are going on their journey, and a lot of these people, like myself, they have a real yearning to connect to God and to know what am I doing on the planet. I just want to know what my path is, right? And we have a lot of trauma around specific iconography and symbolism and direct experiences with the church. There's a lot of trauma around Christianity in the New Age community. And so but the yearning is still there to connect to God, and ultimately to know the truth, which is Jesus, but the family is so faithful, they're always there, but a lot of times we go on our path that looks like this, and so that was me. And the journey that the Lord is having me go on now is really just take a look at these time periods in my life and these organizations that I was involved in and these individuals that I was involved in, things that I can actually remember. And through that process, which is kind of something that I can, so like I have a lot of denial programming in me. So these are things that actually happened that I remember happening, and I can't deny that they happened. Like I went out with this particular guy, or I was involved in this organization or whatever. So I can't deny that happened because I consciously remember it. So he's kind of leading me through this path. And so for a while, we've been really focused on my 30s and 40s. What happened in my 30s and 40s? So there was a period of time in the early 2000s. So I was engaged to an individual, and I was living in a certain city, and then I was going through a lot of change in my life, and this person was my fiance, and so I decided to kind of make a drastic move to another city. And it just so happened that his whole family decided to move there as well. His adopted mom was in certain circles quite well known for being like a spiritual guide, a mentor to a lot of individuals outside of Christianity, so it's kind of like New Age. And also she was a tarot reader. And right about the time that I moved to that particular city, New Orleans, she decided that she wanted to have a large gathering of roughly 15 to 20 individuals to go on a very, very intense like spiritual healing experience. That experience was called the session. And so I decided, you know what? I was actually in a point of my life where I was grieving the loss of a loved one that was very dear to me. And I wanted to go on this experience. Plus my fiance was all in because it was his adopted mom and stuff. And so it was to be 3 months, and it was to be about 8 hours a day. So I had to really like put everything on hold, even trying to make a living. I think I at the time did have like a very part-time job just to kind of like make ends meet and stuff. And that particular person that led the retreat, the session, she was very influenced and had studied, I don't know to what in what capacity, the work of Carl Jung, of Joseph Campbell. And in her work with tarot readings and things like that, she really emphasized, she believed, and like this was the basis of the retreat, was of the work we would be doing in the, and this is kind of a common hermetic understanding, I think. And there's also some, the Lord was revealing to me now that there is definitely a system programming component to the tarot, but you can look at each tarot card as a representation of an archetype internally, but also in the collective unconsciousness. And Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey, you know, it's all about in looking at the archetypes that an individual, a hero, which is an archetype, will encounter along the way. Okay, so the work that we would be doing in this 3-month-long intense process that you know, which was billed as at the end I will be like enlightened, you know, and all my trauma will be taken care of and I'll be fixed. No, in my mind, I was thinking this is what was going to happen. It was based on Joseph Campbell's and Carl Jung's archetypical work, I would say indirectly on the hero's journey, although in my conscious memory, a lot of the memory of that, I was only involved in that experience for a month and a half. I didn't attend the whole 3 months because of some things that happened, but I have a lot of suppressed memories about that time. So I don't remember her directly saying the word hero's journey. She might have, but she definitely talked about archetypes. And basically, and I know from past references that she studied Carl Jung's work in, you know, with archetypes, Joseph Campbell, and she had a history in Hollywood. You know, that experience basically was using the tarot. We would identify our main archetype and which would be like our primary archetype. This is my wording. And these kind of supporting archetypes that are relevant to us on our journey. And I'm not sure if I think that was kind of like her take on Carl Jung's work. I believe that he did talk about primary archetypes within a person, but I think she put her spin on it and being really connected to the tarot for her. And then and kind of interacting with other people's archetypes and experiencing the archetypes in general. And so we would do these exercises where we would have like kind of archetypical dramas where we would play out different archetypes, and the archetypes, we would kind of embody them. So the Lord, in my understanding now, is what the Lord's showing me is that, you know, the archetypes are actually basically lower G gods, the demonics that we're basically allowing them to use our bodies, and we're channeling them. I mean, I don't want that to freak anyone out, but that is what the Lord showed me as kind of what was going on. And that is pretty obvious. Again, if this is triggering anyone, please feel free to, you know, take your time, turn it off and stuff like that. So we would do these archetypal dramas. We would draw it out. We would just kind of like, let's let the archetypes come out to play, you know? So in my processing with the Lord, the Lord was showing me that was my first basis of connection with the hero's journey was that. And also showing me that later on, that there was a lot in terms of my personal experience with that, that 3-month and a half long experience, that there was a lot more going on I think that I have memory suppression about. So that kind of whole experience was kind of like the first point of contact for me that the Lord wanted to show me for like the hero's journey. And then around that same time, so she actually wound up passing, and my fiance and the whole family were we're in New Orleans a few years before Hurricane Katrina happened. And during that time, I entered into a course of study. This was after that intense experience at the University of New Orleans to get an MFA in creative writing, which I now have through the University of New Orleans. I was in my first semester of that course of study when Hurricane Katrina happened, wound up going online to finish the rest of the course of study. Course of study was 4 years, and it took me 5 years because of the online and being like a refugee after Hurricane Katrina. But I did get it, and I did. It actually turned out to be a pretty cool thing. I mean, they still have it going on now, where we did mostly online classes, and then we came together once a year to have like in-person workshops and stuff. And I learned a lot, and it was great. And I was on a track to, I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to be in academia and teach and write, and but how this connects to the hero's journey is because I literally remember like one of my first courses of study, and especially all the classes I had to take was in script writing and screenplays. I wrote during that time 2 or 3 screenplays that are still on the shelf, and play scripts, and even short stories that I wrote, and the dissertation that I wrote and stuff. It was based. It's like, okay, here's the template, here's the formula, especially for fiction. And especially taking those screenwriting classes, it's like the first thing you learn is like, let's talk about the hero's journey. Why is that relevant? Well, because pretty much every script you're ever going to write, screenplay you're ever going to write, if you want it to be accepted in Hollywood and to actually sell it, it's got to be you got to plug it into this formula. And it was billed as like, look, this is an external representation of an internal psyche that everybody has, and you don't question it. This is just what happens inside the psyche. Oh, great. So now as a budding, academic, and as a budding, writer, I want to sell my screenplay to a Hollywood producer for 10 grand and, make money off it. Or I want to write the great American novel. I was more interested in writing the great American novel. I better stick to this formula, and wow, I get to learn. It's good to know that internally we have this hero's journey going on. Well, what the Lord's showing me now is that is a system-based template that has been superimposed, I think, on the psyches of everybody, really, through media. But in mind control programming, I actually believe, and you're seeing it on your screen right now, so you can see kind of like the shape to it. This is the hero's journey. So it's a circular kind of template that's similar to a snake eating his tail, which connects to Leviathan and the cosmology of the Kabbalah. But I actually believe that this hero's journey is superimposed upon the Kabbalah tree. So you have, points on the body, and you also have kind of a story within a story. You have the cosmology, which is the larger Kabbalah cosmology. which doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. Actually, leaves Jesus out of the picture. And I encourage you to go watch the video that I did on the Kabbalah tree to get more of a context for this. But I also feel like as an individual walking through the step-by-step process of mind control programming. And this is I kind of believe it's across the board. It's whether you're programmed through the military or carousel programming with the Jesuits or with the occult, kind of full on like hermetic occultism, which is kind of the memories popping from here more along those lines. That you go on a hero's journey. I think it was just a kind of a convenient modern way of putting people on a journey to embed a meaningful experience into an individual where parts can connect because you're invested in it and it feels real and true to you. And I'm not saying that the journeys that you go on to get you from point A to point B to point C and going through all the ordeals and the thresholds and the climax and the villains and the finding the treasure and all these points along the hero's journey. I'm not saying that that's not relevant and deeply meaningful for you and your parts. But what I'm saying is that it's a false journey in general that is so very, very close and mimicking the journey that God has for us. But what I really, really want to talk about too is God's story, because I don't want to invalidate the deeply profound and organically created by God way in which us as human beings learn. Like the best way that we learn, the best way that we can like go about our real journey is through story.
Yeah.
So I'm not discounting the natural organic way that God created us in using story to have deeply meaningful and impactful experiences that we get to learn from. Like that's how we learn and grow, is through story. I'm going to tell you a story and then you tell me a story and we get to look at larger stories, because it goes back to that verse in Revelations where God said, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, what Jesus did, and Jesus himself, true Jesus, and our testimony, right? And that's our story. So there is, I believe, I don't know if there's a restoration for the hero's journey, like in and of itself, but I know that there is a restorative process that the Lord is taking us through right now, having to do with story. And I know I'm going all over the place, but I just want to say this. I believe that in my journey, somebody who has a little bit of experience in storytelling and academic training and occult practices and stuff, about that, kind of like looking through the back end of that, I believe that it's on the Lord's heart to build up and nurture people who want to tell stories, walking hand in hand with the kingdom of God and with true Jesus. It's like we want to build up this mountain. This is very, very relevant right now because the mountain of media and the mountain of storytelling has been built up by Hollywood for the last, at least 50 years, 75 to 50 to 75 years, right? There's some touch points that I mentioned about George Lucas and the hero's journey, the golden age of Hollywood and the connections with the occult and all that stuff. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? But you can see now there's so much revealing happening with Diddy, with, I send blessings. I come from Southern California, by the way. That's my home area, right? I was born there. And every day, I pray for my fellow Californians in LA that are going through fires and stuff. So I'm not saying that that is in any way a good thing. What I am saying is that there's an opportunity there for a renewal. After the fire, there's the rain, and there's an opening of hearts. Of course, there's an opportunity, folks. If you're in Southern California listening to this, you've gone through the fire, and you're going through the fire literally right now. And there's an opportunity to stay in that place of open-heartedness and to connect with the Lord. Not in a churchy way and not in a religious system way, because that's coming down too. But like, just with this question, where are you? Where are you, true family? Show me, God, where you really are. And I want to know your truth. And I guarantee you will be met by a presence of profound peace and love like you've never known. We're not talking about the lower G gods that come in the form of archetypes. We're talking about a presence that can only be when you've experienced that presence, you're experiencing Jesus. Okay, Yeshua, true Lord Jesus Christ. And I just encourage you to allow, when he reaches out his hand, I just encourage you to take it and see where it goes. And why I'm speaking in this vernacular right now to a specific audience in Southern California is because of what's going on right now. We just went through, I wasn't there because the Lord has me in another state, but you just went through something, and you're still going through something. Paradigm shifting regionally. And it's all connected to, I believe, how God wants to build up a new form of media, a new form of storytelling. And there are so many creative people, so many storytellers, writers, actors, screenwriters, directors, producers, set designers, you name it. We all have our amazing, beautiful giftings. And that is true. Like those giftings and those desires to create, don't throw that away because of you're being discouraged because of what you see. Like, step into it with a pure source of peace and love. Just take his hand, and that's true Jesus, and he'll lead you through what the next step is on your creative journey, because you want to be in connection with your true creative scroll, not your false one, right? And so I wrote a lot of different things. Like I wrote whole scripts and I wrote 300 pages on a novel. And the Lord is having me go back and look at those things. Some things I've decided to destroy because they were completely demonic. And some things it's like, wow, is there restoration for that? So with each piece of material and each new idea that you have, it's like, is this life-giving, right? And I have actually, the Lord has allowed me to watch some things, some new material coming through, poking through. It's kind of hard to believe, but there's some new material poking through that they have life. It has life on it. And there's a lot of stuff coming through, especially like the main broadcasting industry, old guard, which is like, oh, that's just vile, So we can just dismiss that. But I really look forward to where the Lord is going to lead me in my creative journey right now. As I step, I'm not there 100%. Of course, I don't think any of us are. But like where the Lord is leading me in my creative journey for, what we get to create together, like stories and poems and blogs. And the Lord's kind of right now, my creative journey is really focusing in on actually video editing and video creation, filmmaking. I have done even live stage production, direction. Like I said, I did script writing, and so you may have a plethora of creative talents and things that you've dabbled in, even like visual art and stuff like that, on your palette of colors. And it's like, I just encourage you just to have fun with it. During your creative time, if you have an hour or 2 hours or whatever, take some time to connect with the true family, go within, get into a calm space. It's okay to be a little excited and even a little edgy, and just get into at least a calmer space and just say, Lord, how can we play today? And that might be just like going for a walk and a poem will bubble up, or you might feel like drawing. If you're listening to this and you're, doing transformations, there's an amazing series of kind of guided stuff for creative for drawers, artists. Don't have to be an artist. In fact, I've been diving into that, and I am not a visual artist, but it's called Doodle Dives with Muriel. And so that's available to anybody who's doing transformations. And actually, if you're not doing transformations, you can actually even purchase that for a very low cost on the Transformations website. So that's an amazing guided practice. You've had a few people on Testimony Mountain, Carolyn Weaver as well, and a part 1 and part 2 with telling our story through art and the beautiful conversation that happens there. I really encourage you to go back to some of the interviews on Testimony Mountain with that really focus in on art, writing. Adena, you just published a brand new book, Windows into My Soul, that is all about your journey with journaling, and with parts and things like that. So I just love the way that the Lord is giving us opportunity to create and to create art and to tell our story in new and amazing and colorful and creative and fun ways. So I look forward to where the True Family is going with all of this, and maybe it'll develop into a theater company, to a writing group. I don't know, but I'm just excited to see where the Lord's taking all of us in this journey.
So thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing. And I hope people understand these concepts that we're looking at as the hero's journey, and a lot of stuff that's connected to the occult and mind control. And yet I totally agree with you. The Lord has a story for our lives, and it's so beautiful and amazing that we get to step into. And so thank you for sharing this and bringing some clarity to it. And we'll look forward to having you on again. So thank you
All
very
right. Thank you, Adena. I look forward to it.
All right. And thank you all for watching. Just want to encourage you. You have a testimony. You have a piece of the puzzle. You have a story to share. And would you let us know if you want to share that in writing, or if you want to share that by coming on? We'd love to have more testimonies of the triumph of God's love in our lives. And we'll see you all next time on Testimony Mountain.